Okay, so most people have never actually met a true believer. Now, sure, we've read stories about believers, we know that true believers exist, but we hardly ever see them. Well, Be Holy is a podcast that shines light on the behaviors, the mindset, and the duties of a believer, so that we can recognize God's children even when they don't look like God's children. Yeah, it's a bit of a process.
Each lesson is given by our own Pastor Nard. Your sins have been forgiven. All you have to do is believe it, and God will help you through your journey. You've traveled long enough without Him.
Today on Be Holy.
Have you ever felt that God might have been too late for your situation? Things like that happens all the time. It just happens. And so right when you would take care of a thing, if it were up to you, you would take care of it right now. But we're all depending on God to help us through whatever the situation is. And sometimes it just seems like maybe He's too late. Well, I want you to understand He's never too late, even when it appears that He is. It may sound like He's too late. It may feel like He's too late, but He's not late. It's His will that's going to be done, regardless of what we think and say. And no matter how much of a hurry we try to put on Him, He's only going to move according to His will. And so that's what we have to deal with. Letting God be God and letting us be the believers. You know, life in itself will take you on ups and downs here and there. But you still have to wait on God to actually give you instructions on how you need to deal with whatever that station of life that you're in. Whatever's going on in your life, you still need God's help, regardless of knowing that, yes, He will take care of it. Yes, He's always taking care of it. You still have to wait for instructions. Still have to wait. Maybe He's moving a different way in your life. You know, you don't rush Him because you're in a rush. I can't rush Him just because I'm in a rush. I need a blessing right now, Lord. I need you to do it for me now. Oh, no. He's God, not me. He's got that job and it's taken care of. So since He's God, that means I don't have to be. And when I ask Him to do things for me or to help me with certain things or to help me with information about where I'm going or what I'm supposed to be doing, it's up to me to wait. Or, you know, when He does give the instruction, be happy about the instruction. I don't know. We're going to read something here talking about Lazarus being raised from the dead. This man name was Lazarus, and he's going to be raised from the dead by Jesus Christ. And his sisters and his family were just kind of, hey, you know, he wouldn't have never died had you been here. You know, had you been here, he'd still be alive. And so we'll find out that a lot of this was God's plan. You know, He waited till Lazarus actually fell asleep, as they say, before he would actually even start towards the village of where he was buried. And so as soon as he arrives, Lazarus' sister, his family says, hey, had you been here, he would have never died. Well, because Jesus was there, he really, he could come back to life, If you really believe God, even though things seem impossible, you might not like it. It might not feel good, but let God do His work so that you can rejoice. Let God do His work so you rejoice. All right, John chapter 11, verse 33. And it says here, when Jesus saw her weeping, no, let's go back to 32. When Mary arrived and saw Jesus, she fell at His feet and said, Lord, if you had been here, my brother would not have died. And then verse 33, when Jesus saw her weeping and he saw her weeping and saw the other people wailing with her, a deep anger welled up within him, and he was deeply troubled. Anger welled up in him. When I first read that, I said, wow, at the funeral, he was angry. I mean, I know people get angry at funerals, but He's the resurrection. And I'm wondering what was making him so angry at the death of Lazarus. I mean, what was the point? What was the point? And so I'm wondering if it was unbelief. He had been talking to him. He had been showing him the miracles. He had been healing. He had been doing all of these things. And the very ones that weren't disciples, but they, believed in him, or so they say, they're now weeping as if nothing can be done. Yet Jesus is there. And that's us a lot of times. We think nothing can be done, yet we're saved. We're thinking nothing can be done, yet we're believers. Well, verse number 33 says, when Jesus saw her weeping and saw the others weeping and wailing with her, a deep anger welled up within him, and he was deeply troubled. And then he asked the question, where'd you put him? Where is he? And so they told him, Lord, come and see. And then that's when it talks about that wonderful short verse, Jesus wept. You mean God cried? Yeah. Yeah. The people who were standing nearby said, see how much he loved him? But some said, this man has healed the blind man, and he could have kept Lazarus from dying. They're doing all this talk. Jesus is there to do a work, and they're talking, as humans do. We talk about a lot of things that we don't know about. They were standing around, he healed the blind man. And okay. Verse number 38, Jesus was still angry as he arrived at the tomb. It's still talking about that anger. A cave with a stone rolled across the entrance is that tomb. Not necessarily in the ground, but a cave. So Jesus was still angry. So Jesus says, roll the stone aside. And but Martha, the dead man's sister, she protested and said, Lord, he's been dead about 4 days. The smell's going to be terrible, And Jesus said, did not tell you that you would see the glory of God if you believed? Did not tell you that? I guess maybe that's what he was angry about. I told you these things, and you guys acted like you believed me. But now you're acting as if, or you're responding as if you don't believe me. Roll the stone away. Well, verse number 40 says this, Jesus responded, didn't I tell you that you would see God's glory if you believe? So they rolled the stone away, rolled it aside, and then Jesus looked up to heaven and said, Father, thank you for hearing me. You always hear me, but I said this out loud for the sake of all these people standing here, so that they will believe you sent me. So why did Jesus say, Father? For the sake of the people, so that they believe that he sent Jesus. Verse 43, then Jesus shouted, Lazarus, come out. Lazarus, come out. 44, and the dead man came out, his hands and feet bound in grave's clothes, his face wrapped with a headcloth. And Jesus told him, unwrap him and let him go. So he was dead a few minutes ago, but now he's alive simply because Jesus said it. Jesus said it. Now, he didn't say anything on his own. That flesh didn't speak of itself. The spirit inside that flesh spoke, and that spirit was the Father. Jesus didn't do anything on his own. The spirit had to lead the flesh to do things. All the work was done by the spirit, and that's what we always forget. We tend to think that our flesh is actually going to do something. And the words that he told them were spirit. And so he told them, you'd see the glory of God if you believe. In other verses, it talks about, we know he's going to rise again on the last day, and, all the resurrection and everything. And Jesus said, I am the resurrection. I am the resurrection. You're waiting on something that's already here. So a lot of times when we're thinking God's too late, he's actually too early, or he's early. Not too early, but he's early. He's taking care of the problem. And we sit there angry, mad, upset, and we don't have to be. Our trust is in the Lord. Our trust is in God. Let him deal with those hard issues in your life. Let him give you the instruction on how to walk through this life. A lot of times we think we can just skate through without instruction. Like we ride cars. How many of you have ever actually looked at the instruction manual of your car? You just jumped in the car and started driving. You learn it along the way. Understand lights and understand this and understand that about the car before you even start driving. Just drive it. Well, Jesus is the manual. Some people say the Bible's the manual, and you can say that. But before there was a Bible, there was Jesus. Before there ever was a scripture, there was Jesus. And all we have to do is hear what he's told us. He told us, if you'll see the glory of God if you believe. That's all we have to do. Start believing. Let's start there. Let's stop trying to change the world. Let's start believing, and then the world will change after that. A lot of times we try to, like I said, change the world, and we haven't changed us yet. The hardest thing to do is to change you. Yet we're trying to change the world. All we have to do is start changing us. Change the way we think. If God told us these things, let's start believing it. Let's start responding to it. And that's me too. That's me too. I'm not talking about just you do it. I'm talking about me too. If God has given me something or said something to me, Lord, bring it back to my remembrance. Help me to understand what you said. If I'm moving in the wrong direction, tell me. I'm not trying to go against you at all. I just don't know what I'm doing. And a lot of times we don't want to admit to God that we don't know what we're doing. But you need to admit that to God. You need to admit it to yourself. You don't know anything. Like these people were sitting there watching as Jesus came into the camp. They came into the village. Oh, had you been here, my brother would not have died. All we have to do is remember what he said. Lord, help me to remember what you said. You said that we would see the glory of God if we believe. Help me to believe. Help me to believe. Help my unbelief. Ain't that what the gentleman said? Lord, help me to hear everything that you're saying. Help me to understand. Because if I understand, then I won't panic when trouble arises.
Well, how did you feel about today's lesson? Speak with us at beholy116@gmail.com. Share Be Holy with a friend, a colleague, or someone who needs it.
Connect with us today at beholy116@gmail.com. Your support of Be Holy is greatly appreciated. Simply text the word GIFT to 614-363-6133. And if you're ever in Columbus, Ohio, give us a visit. Come visit us.
Brought to you by the First Church of Christ Apostolic Way, a small church with a big heart.